I stand squarely behind my decision. We were clear-eyed about the risk. We planned for every contingency.
If the chaos that unfolded at Kabul airport was planning for every contingency, then clearly the plan went horribly wrong. Not that Commander-in-Chief Biden conceded that in his speech to the nation yesterday, as many hoped he would. No mention of the painful images like these, more than 600 Afghans crammed into a US military aircraft that some say could define America's 20-year war in Afghanistan and his presidency. Instead, just this one admission.
The truth is, this did unfold more quickly than we had anticipated.
But President Biden didn't explain why he was so taken by surprise. Why did he assume the Taliban wouldn't reach Kabul quickly, even though all the evidence pointed to the fact that it would? And why did he assume the Afghan military would fight? There was no real explanation. Instead, the president rehashed his policy as to why it was right to withdraw from Afghanistan in the first place. But his policy wasn't in question. It was the execution of that policy that's been the issue. And for that, there was no apology. In almost Trumpian tones, President Biden insisted he had no regrets. And while he said the buck stopped with him, he also sought to blame others.
When I came into office, I inherited a deal that President Trump negotiated with the Taliban. Afghanistan political leaders gave up and fled the country. The Afghan military collapsed. The Afghan government and its supporters discouraged us from organizing a mass exodus.
The execution here has been nothing short of disastrous. What I was hoping to hear from President Biden yesterday, rather than kind of a litany of justifications of how we got here, was how do we move forward in the near and the long term? Some future soldiers are going to have to go back to deal with this. But now we have no bases. Our local allies will have been hunted down. The Taliban are armed to the teeth from all of the weapons that they have now taken from the Afghan army. We do not have a single country in the region that's agreed to host American forces or a base.
Beyond the immediate finger-pointing, a damning report today from the US watchdog on Afghanistan reconstruction said the collapse and chaos was inevitable given America's incoherent strategy and its failure to truly understand the social, political and cultural context on the ground that it was seeking to replace. And that, of course, is a problem born of 20 years of mismanagement. As bad as the situation is now, one pollster said it's unlikely to hurt President Biden in next year's midterm elections.
It's always a very risky venture to presume that a foreign policy issue is going to dominate a domestic political decision by the public, especially in a midterm election, frankly, because wars tend to be more about the president, really, than a party that you're voting for. There aren't a lot of examples in history where this kind of thing completely changes the game.
President Biden insists he stands by his decision. No more Americans should lose their lives fighting a war in Afghanistan that he says Afghan soldiers themselves don't have the will to fight. He's betting that Americans care more about that too than the painful fate of those now left behind.